Okay, it is exactly 1:30, so it is time to begin. If everybody could take their seats, please. And I'd like to welcome everybody to the 40th anniversary celebration of CIMMS. I'm Greg McFarquhar. I've been director of CIMMS for the last year. So we have a bunch of presentations for the first couple hours here, and then we'll move into a poster session. And this is meant to celebrate all of the accomplishments of CIMMS over the last 40 years, and also to describe a little bit about what is to come in the future. So I'd like to start by acknowledging part of the CIMMS leadership team. Randy Pepler is the Associate Director, Tracy Renke is the Executive Director of Finance, and Sebastian Torres is the Assistant Director for NOAA Relations. And what I'd like to start is to give you a bit of an overview about what exactly a cooperative institute is, for some of you who may not be familiar with that. And more specifically, what is a NOAA Cooperative Institute? Well, a NOAA Cooperative Institute is basically an academic or nonprofit research institution that conducts research that supports NOAA's mission goals and strategic plans. So what we really do here at CIMMS and all the other cooperative institutes do is we create a long-term and meaningful collaboration between NOAA laboratories and universities. Part of the way of doing this is to provide NOAA sponsorship of students through fellowships, and in doing so, we help to educate and train the next generation of the nation's scientific workforce. We are not the only cooperative institute. There are cooperative institutes all across the United States. So you see here CIMMS, we're in central Oklahoma here. There's also cooperative institutes in Washington, California, Oregon, on the East Coast, Colorado, and so on. And all of them are charged with different goals. But they all relate to NOAA's mission goals. And the 5 primary goals of NOAA are healthy oceans, weather-ready nation, climate adaptation and mitigation, resilient coastal communities, and NOAA enterprise objectives. And the work we do at CIMMS, it could probably fall under all 5, but the 3 which we most emphasize are weather-ready nation, climate adaptation and mitigation, and NOAA enterprise objectives. And probably our most prominent goal that we contribute to NOAA is through the weather-ready nation. And NOAA's mission goals within the weather-ready nation are to improve weather decision services and to deliver improved weather forecasting services to support management of the nation's water supply, to improve sector-relevant information in support of economic productivity, to integrate environmental forecasting services, and to sustain a high-skilled professional workforce with training, tools, and infrastructure to meet the mission. Now, we, of course, do not provide the weather forecasting services ourselves, but rather we do a lot of research on ways to improve the methodology of doing these weather forecasts, and we work to transition them to operations. In terms of climate adaptation and mitigation, the goal of NOAA is to improve the scientific understanding of the changing climate system and its impact. And here within CIMMS, we would spend some time looking at extreme weather and how some of these extreme weather events may be changing in an evolving climate. And in terms of NOAA enterprise objectives, for those of you who aren't familiar with that, it's really functions for engaging partners and customers, or the underlying administration and management functions that support NOAA's work. So in terms of a CIMMS overview, Jeff is going to talk more about the history, but we were established in 1978. We're the largest and second oldest research center at OU. We're a center of excellence in mesoscale meteorology, weather radar, and regional climate to produce better forecasts and warnings to save lives and property. And what we have to deal with phenomena that are on very different scales. So we have to worry about the scales of cloud nuclei, which can be on the fractions of micrometers, and we have to go all the way up to synoptic scales, which are thousands of kilometers. And we also have a wide variety of activities. We deal with observations. Eric will later talk about field projects. We deal with analysis and modeling, understanding, and prediction of weather elements. And one of our last talks will be Kim, and she'll talk about some of the increasing emphasis we have on societal aspects and socioeconomic impacts of such phenomena. In terms of highlights, last year we had $19.1 million in expenditures. The bulk of that was from NOAA through the cooperative agreement, but it's important to note that we leverage those NOAA funding and that we get funding from many other agencies such as the state of Oklahoma, the Department of Energy, NASA, and the National Science Foundation. By latest count, we have 196 people. Actually, I think it's now 197. Of those, 130 are staff, mainly people with masters or PhDs in atmospheric science or a related field. We also have a large student presence. We have 34 graduate students in CIMMS, 32 undergraduates. Last year, we had 119 peer-reviewed publications, 62 of which were led by CIMMS scientists. And we have a lot of scientists who work in other activities as well, what's called R2O, or Research to Operations. And we also have some who are doing training, involved in training activities as well. So in terms of today's agenda, we're going to hear about some of the activities that are underway in CIMMS. If we have 196 people in CIMMS, I hope you understand that you're not going to learn about everything going on in CIMMS today. But we do have about 70 or 80 posters outside during our reception where you'll be able to get more details, take a look at some of the projects that most interest you, and some of the scientists will be by their posters to better explain some of their activities. In terms of what we're going to present today, during our oral session, we're going to talk a little bit about the history of CIMMS. Then we're going to have talks on radar meteorology and radar engineering, as radar has been one of our main focuses over the last 40 years. We've also had a big emphasis on storm scale meteorology and forecast and warning improvements, so we'll have a couple talks on them. Then we'll talk about CIMMS' role in field experiments, and we'll finish up with a talk on societal impacts, and then I'll try and guess a little about what the next 40 years hold for CIMMS, because I sincerely hope that I'll see you all here in 40 years for our 80th anniversary celebration as well. So that's a challenge to everybody in the room, okay? But I'm going to stop here so that we keep on schedule. But before we start, I'll give an opportunity if anybody has a couple of questions before we start. You can raise your hand, and we have people that will run around with microphones if you have a question.